Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Good morning. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tom, can you open the meeting for me?
Good morning and welcome to the Lorain County Board of Commissioners meeting on Wednesday, September 26, 2012. Miss Lori Kokoski has, what type of dog there?
It's a dachshund. Doxin. Little Doxin. Female less than a year old. She's a little sweetheart. Yeah, you're a little sweetheart, aren't you? Come down to the dog pound. She'll be available on Saturday after 3 o'clock. She will be spayed or neutered prior to you actually being able to pick her up. So come down there. How many dogs do we have? 32. So we need your help. If you're thinking about getting a dog, come down to the dog kennel first before going anywhere else to get one, because we need you to help us save as many animals as we can. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Waits for the president.
No.
That's right. Nothing starts till Lori's ready.
That's right.
We have rules.
Under resolutions, number 1, Job and Family Services bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Advances, repayments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Travel.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Under the airport, extend the agricultural land lease agreement with Deshant Nolte Farms commencing February 27, 2013 through February 28, 2014. Leasee will pay $138.50 per acre.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kalo.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have a number of potential new hires I want to talk with the board about. Golden Acres, Job and Family Services at WDA for tutoring and mentoring, which are more contractual employee positions that we do. And also, we may talk about negotiations, as we have been served notice now by the United Steelworkers of America with their positions to negotiate. As I told you, the Teamsters had filed, now the Steelworkers have filed. So we may get into some of those discussions. And also, maybe the sale of real estate. So all of those topics are allowable under the Sunshine Law for executive session talks. So I would ask at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today, we go into executive session and have those talks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the same in the County Commissioners meeting minutes of September 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Approve and enter in a bus stop agreement with Greyhound Lines, Inc., Texas, for service commencing October 1st, 2012 at 40 East Avenue, Elyria.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Community Development, award contract with CT Consultants for state-required RRS inspections for fiscal year 11, CDBG formula grant in the amount of $9,000 to be paid from the contract services account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Approve and enter an MOU with RE Warner Westlake in the amount of $4,412 for the purpose of providing plan, review, and inspections for the NSP project of 4 new homes on Albany Avenue in Sheffield Township. This will be paid from the contract services account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, Jim, are we going to be able to make the target date by the end of the year?
Yeah, I think so. Don's here. We're plugging away at this. It hasn't been the the easiest evolution,
Right.
but the pieces of the mosaic are starting to fall into place such that I think we're going to be successful. You want to add to that, Don?
Yeah, Don, what do you got?
Yes, we believe we can easily make the timeline. This MOU is actually at a request from RE Warner to provide essentially building department services. We won't be able to do the code, but we'll be sending in our building department inspectors to do code inspections and referring them to then our architect, who would essentially be the code official on this to enforce our contract. So this was something that was done to make sure that our buildings are being built to code in an area that doesn't have that service at this point in time.
Right, so this is an additional cost we had to incur because the building department isn't active in Sheffield Township.
We would be paying for this anyway through the contract. It's just a question of who would be entering into the contract. Either the contractor would go to the building department and include that in their bid, or we're going to pay directly for the service
Okay.
through the funds.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Approve and enter an agreement with Coldwater Consulting LLC Columbus in the amount of $185,000 to provide technical assistance for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant to be paid from the contract services account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Job and Family, authorized purchase service agreement with Nord Center Lorain in the amount of $124,689.25 for the Training, Employment, and Work Experience Program for TANF participants for fiscal year 13. Authorized director to execute on behalf of the Board of Prosecutors' approval as to form, and to amend for changes in program and content and increase.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Workforce, approve an extension of MOU with One Stop for fiscal year 12-13, effective October 1st, 2012 through June 30th, that should be 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
I have no additional comments this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor.
Commissioners, I would like to request an executive session to discuss one matter of imminent litigation.
Commissioners report.
Well, this past Thursday, all 3 commissioners attended the candidates' night in Eaton Township. It was very well attended. It's nice to be out and see everyone out in Eaton Township. Lorain County Labor Agency we had on Sunday, and I ran into Mike Ferria and Mr. Cortez. He has some type of like a $400,000 grant that's going to help at-risk youth, and he was looking for a letter of support from the Board of Commissioners. I don't know if he sent anything to you as yet.
I haven't heard anything from him.
Okay.
Can I add to that, though?
Sure.
While you're talking about it, I actually spoke to Mike that day also, and he was supposed to send me the information over, but it's through the Lorain County Urban League. Money they found to start the kids, instead of the 18 to 24 program, they said they've targeted Lorain County,
17-year-olds?
actually down to as early as 14-year-olds to 17-year-olds, that would augment that program, starting with the internships and the diversion process. But they were looking for a support letter from the county. He was supposed to send me the information. I haven't received anything as of yet.
Well, that's fairly easy. If they're looking for a support letter, they don't have a grant. They're applying for a
They're
grant.
applying for a grant, but
Okay.
they are like in the final stages. They should get awarded.
Everybody always is until they submit.
But, I mean, so, and I talked to
Perfect. We've
George
been
Lambert on Saturday when I was at the Overland NAACP, and the issue came up there also.
perfect. The community has been deficient lately, not by its own accord, but by receiving dollars that used to return to us for diversionary programs. Clearly, $1 spent on proactive diversionary activities precludes $10 spent later on an adjudication process.
Sure you didn't talk to them? Those are the same figures we were talking about Saturday and
Where
Sunday.
do you think they got them from?
Okay.
All right, so, WIA dollars, while we try to bend the WIA dollars around as much as possible, the diversionary activities, except for work experience, legitimate work experience programming, are precluded from being used for much of the diversionary stuff. And that was sort of the problem we had about 2 or 3 years ago when we were contracting. The dollars were being bent a little too far. So I'm glad to hear that there may be an access to additional resources. So I'll reach out to them today and make the call to them to get the information so we can participate.
Yeah, he was even talking to Joe Thayer from Labor, trying to see if get those, those youth involved with their apprenticeship program. Also, I received an email from Barb Bickle from Visit Lorain County. She said that Tough Mudder was very happy with the enthusiasm and participation in Lorain County as a whole. They would like to come back again this year, but for various reasons are looking for a different site to hold the event. The event brought around $1 million in economic impact to our area. They sold out our hotels, packed our restaurants, and sourced large amounts of supplies and labor locally. They also paid local nonprofit organizations to staff the event, and of course we'd like to see them come back. Basic site requirements include one owner, 450 acres with some parking available on site, with shuttling to and from parking areas with an option. They have used many different types of land and described farm field as being suitable. The site needs to be closed off approximately 1 week prior to and leading up to the event. So if you know a site owner that might be interested in renting land to Tough Mudder, please get a hold of Barb Bickle, and her phone number is 984-5282. So I will have Hal put that up on the screen. This coming, October 3rd, which is next Wednesday, Goodwill of Lorain County is having its 10th job fair. It will be held at the site on Broadway, which is right across the street from the Journal. And it says they have 26 businesses lined up and signed up to attend the job fair and are looking for employees to hire, and some of them perform interviews on the spot and hire these people right then and there. So if you're looking for a job, and go down to Goodwill's job fair. And I have a press release that for District 9, the NRAC, the Natural Resource Assistance Council that I sit on, Clean Ohio Green Space Conversion Fund Program. It just tells you how to go about applying and how we will be rating each application. And I will have Hal put that up on the screen and where to apply and what to do. But if you want to go on the website, it's called www.pwcstateohio.us if you'd like more information on that. And lastly, Mr. Ennis had sent us a response to one of the residents in Hidden Valley regarding the sewer rates. I had forwarded him some correspondences that I had received. And Mr. Ennis, is this a letter? I know it's going to a specific person, but can I send this out to all the people that are requesting information about the sewer rate increases? Because I think it kind of tells the whole story of where we are today and how we got here and what we can do going forward. Okay, thank you. That's the end of my report.
Busy week. Got a couple things. Actually, I'll start out with, and Jerry, I need to add to the executive session with you, pending litigation. I've been following for the last 3 or 4 months the issue with Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae about not paying their conveyance fees, the transfer taxes. They won in Michigan. It's being appealed currently, but Cuyahoga County has moved forward on it. Montgomery County is looking at a class action lawsuit. I would rather we initiate our own. And Jim brought me some information, and
I have copies of the Michigan lawsuit that started this all. That was one. It's under appeal, but it was a significant loss for Freddie and Fannie Mae. I believe they'll probably settle. And I think it's important that we get quickly into something. Cuyahoga was first. I would have preferred to be first, but
well, it gives us 10-year look back also, Jim,
right.
In that regard. So, I mean, I'd like if we can get this to the prosecutor and see what we can have him look at it, talk about it, and
Yeah, we just need to make sure that we get out there quickly so that we're not compressed into a class action settlement, and which isn't in our best interest.
Right, I agree. Okay, that's number one. I was in Columbus Thursday and Friday this week. I had to come back that evening for, again, Commissioner said the candidates issue. I serve on the Justice and Public Safety Committee and the Commissioners Association, and we met on Thursday. Public Defender report was our main topic, and indigent defense funding, because again, we're frozen to 35%, but the Public Defender's Office is asking for some additional revenues going into next year and hoping we can get an increase of 37 or 38% reimbursement. On Friday was our board meeting for the month. And Jim, I saw we passed a one-stop extension through 2012 to June. That's just that's supposed to be 2013, June 2013.
It should be 2013. What
Yeah.
does it read?
2012.
Yeah, she said it was supposed to be 13.
Yeah. So, but the governor just announced on Tuesday his workforce transformation board. He has a new one for the state of Ohio. They're bringing all the WIBs to the table. I have a meeting in Columbus, I believe it's October 4th, because I serve on the workforce committee for the state association. You're talking about cutting up the regions.
I have a draft position paper with regard to, how we may want to respond to that. I'll be sending it to individually to each one of you, because you may have different views on it, but we do need to weigh in with regard to the potential consolidation of WIBs. Right now, they have us identified in the Cuyahoga region, which is not in our best interest.
Correct.
If we're forced into a consolidation, I'd rather see us look a little bit to the west, to some partners that have similarities, more similarities with us, rather than being gobbled up by heavy urbanized areas such as Cuyahoga. We may even look south to Richmond, Medina.
Mm-hmm.
Those areas
Ashland,
are more associated with these problems that we're seeing here in Lorain County. And the last thing here is the state has asked us to do this MOU until the end of next June. They originally wanted a 3-month extension, which we did on the MOU, waiting for some issues to be launched out of Columbus. While I know they're going to launch, we never did see it the last
Well,
time.
the issue being, though, is a lot of the ideas they want to launch
Right.
don't coincide with federal law.
Well, they don't. There's some
So-
issues, and I think that they got a pretty good board set to work on this, but we did receive guidance that they would not be coming out with any initiatives prior to December, so we needed to extend the MOU contract. So anything that's going to be changed will probably not materialize until next summer.
Right.
But I believe that they'll be out there for discussion and review mid to late spring, and then for implementation into the summer. They cannot do away with a local WIB board without the consent of the local legislative authority. So I need you to know that going into this. There is some areas of the state that could justifiably be rejuggled. That doesn't make a lot of sense from when it was set up way back. But Lorain County has done a really great job with their workforce development and their boards and their WIBs and the programming. And we remained independent years ago because we felt that we needed to make those decisions for the workforce here.
Well, there's a big push to the Area 7, which is about 13 or 14 counties from Montgomery County all the way up to Lucas.
Right.
And they're having real angst with this because they've got their sub-regions
But
as they operate.
But they're having problems in a couple of those sub-regions. What really happened there is
They're
the
not getting enough
sub-regions are
attention to
operating as
smaller.
regions
Exactly.
rather than sub-regions. And so this push actually is coming more from inside some of the larger WIBs than it's coming from outside. They think they're going to consolidate into smaller regions, and I actually think that the push is going to be to make more regions so that there's more independence, so that
That's actually not the push coming out of the governor's office.
I know it's not the push at the governor's
Okay.
office. I think it's going to be the local push back that they're going to get when the community gets involved. Because you take maybe Erie County, their problems are not similar to Lucas County. They're more urbanized up in Lucas and more rural in Erie. So programming is challenging, how to apply for grants and what grants are going to be most effective in the region. And we would have a similar problem with Cuyahoga. Not that we couldn't be good partners with them, but their looks are very different than our looks. And they're doing the most of the time when they apply for federal grants has to do with microbiology, healthcare, things that are strengths with University Health Systems and Cleveland Clinic for granting grants to bring along an educated workforce to work in those environments. Some of our folks will work over there, but not enough of them for us to make our major emphasis on that type of grant work.
Right. That's where the issue is, and that was our discussion there. This workforce development is a very personal, localized issue.
It is.
And we have to target the entities that best fit our makeup, and doing it in the regional approach that they're laying out there is not necessarily to the best benefit of a lot of counties in the state.
What I'd like to do for you, if it's okay with the board, maybe next week or the week after, is give you a report out on the activities over the past year and a half, and the people that we've served, and the demographics and the outcomes and the training that we have people in. I think you'll be a little surprised by a few of those things. One of the statistics that I looked at that was a little surprising to me, but it shouldn't have been, was that 50% of our consumer base is 40 and older. Where you would think that we were seeing the younger workforce, but we're seeing a lot of folks that are entering middle age should be in their maximum earning potential years that are not. They've suffered significant job reductions. They're either unemployed or underemployed, and trying to re-educate them into an acceptable field that's going to get them back as a prime wage earner has been challenging. Another piece of data that comes out would be that about 10%, consistently between 8.5% and 10% of our client base are veterans that we're serving. So we have not seen that number raise and lower over the years. You would think that because of the activities that were going on, when you hear a lot of things about veterans returning, we understand that we have the gold standard for veterans, but the numbers are pretty steady between veterans. So I think the information will be worthwhile, but it will take about 15 to 20 minutes to present it, and we can have some slides if you'd like to take a look at that.
Also, Jim, we need to hop on whoever's handling our incumbent worker training. They're releasing $30 million next month. Finally, we've been assured.
Okay.
They've been telling us for 6 months they're going to release it. There's $30 million coming up for incumbent worker training next month.
The problem with the incumbent worker training, and it came down from the federal government. If you remember, this was a fight that we fought the good fight with the federal government a few years ago when we said
paper with Department of Labor that they agreed with us.
Right, we set a national standard for this. Right. However, they changed the requirements from strictly incumbent worker training that we were allowed to use wage match and facilities match with. They've now said it has to be layoff aversion.
Correct.
That becomes hard for the companies because not a lot of them want to state that they're going to do a layoff if they don't get this training and unsettle their workforce. And if some of them make that statement, they may be in a position where they would have had to serve a warn notice. So they're not very satisfied of having to make very big statements about potential layoffs with regard to receiving incumbent worker training dollars. Therefore, we've seen a program that was getting heavily used by local employers to either move into new markets or new technologies, and we could assist them with the dollars to almost none of that's being spent right now. We still do have some of those dollars available. We may request that they get even reprogrammed back into ITAs.
Well, aren't we available, and I mean the discussion a lot of the commissioners at this meeting was, is there a way to waiver having to use it as layoff aversion?
It's a requirement that's put down from the federal government. If it was a state requirement, we'd work with the state on a waiver process. Now, can the state get a waiver from the federal government?
Was, can the state get a waiver? That was more of the discussion.
They can if they're pushed enough by enough local entities to ask for a state waiver. But that process will probably take a year, or longer, because it's got to work its way through the various desks of the federal government. That may be something that CCAL wants to work with the state on.
Put a letter together maybe from our WIB board and from the Board of Commissioners here. We'd like to see a waiver.
We can certainly do that.
And I can forward it and put it with our package with the Commissioners Association, because it was a discussion down there. If we come out first with it, I think I can talk to some other counties who are like-minded. We might be able to discuss it.
It's a great program, and it's politically blind. It's getting monies to our local employers and having them match it with their resources that they're currently expending to retrain and or improve the training so they're more competitive and more efficient in their workplace environment. Okay,
That's
I'll
enough
put something
work for us.
together.
It was busy meetings just because we didn't have a meeting in August. Also, again, this week I attended, well, going back to CCAO Friday, we've drafted a copy of Mending and Strengthening Fractured Partnerships between the state and its local governments, working on background regarding the erosion of state-local partnership for the last decade and how it started. We got to stop the cuts to the local government fund and the TPP. We got to get those stop the bleeding because it's killing us. Restore disproportionate cuts imposed on local government fund, especially in light of the $500 million carryover the state brought forward into this fiscal year. And then trying to uphold the constitutional amendment regarding casino revenue distributions as it was passed by ballot issue and leave that money at the county level.
Are they going to change that?
Well, the state legislature tried earlier in the year.
Well, I remember
and
that,
we
but
were
I
able to
thought-
stop that.
Right.
But, follow the constitutional amendment and leave it up to local governments.
It's a huge impact on our budget next year.
I know it is. Also, attending the Overland NAACP, Ron Rimmer did a very nice job. Congratulations to the Puerto Rican home in Lorain. They celebrated their 55th anniversary. Sheriff Stamidi and I and Frank Janik attended that. And last night I had the opportunity to speak at the open house for Emerge, or LorainCounty.com, for those of you more aware of that. They left the city of Elyria, but they did relocate in Avon Lake, so even though it was a loss for Elyria, we kept them here in Lorain County. I'd like to thank Avon Lake. Marty O'Donnell did a very good job with them. So that's the end of my report, I guess.
Now, Thursday, we were at the Township Association meeting. Townships did a great candidate night. After the meeting, I actually got a chance to talk with our state reps and our state senator regarding that $490 million. One thing that did come out was it's far less than a 10% carryover for the state, with the state going to owe $1.3 billion for unemployment. So it is one of these issues where they do have some money, but it's money that's owed. So it's like saying, well, I haven't paid my car payment yet, but I got extra money. Can't go through and spend it yet until you make the car payment. Other things that came up, been talking with a lot of residents, sewers, back in the newspapers, and calls coming in. Actually, I had a conversation with the mayor, Chase Ritenauer, about it. Talked to him about the service fee. I let him know that I wasn't happy with the service fee. I believe that this board agrees with that. He was able to reschedule keep the meeting for Thursday, the 27th of this month at Amherst Township Hall at 6 p.m. With Mr. Fowler. And we have Mr. Cortez going, our county engineer, and elected officials from the township as well. What I would like to request, kind of take the politics out, is to have Jim work with the city of Lorain to try to eliminate the service fee. I was just wondering if you would be in agreement with that, to have him head up the negotiations with the city.
Jerry, let's go back to the legal standing in your letter. And again, I don't know if Jim can negotiate for the private residences. Commissioner Kokoski spoke about a letter from the prosecutor. I want to go back and before there's any legal.
Well, okay, I'll take
I'll
take the word negotiation out and try to work with the elected officials in order to come up with a more fair and balanced approach for the
I
residents.
don't see any problem with
dialoguing.
dialoguing.
But
right.
he can't negotiate, correct?
I guess you're right. I guess we're getting the semantics there.
Okay, well, I don't have a problem with Jim talking to him, because I spoke to Miss Winrod Monday, Tuesday, I think, for about 45 minutes, and I told her where I was at on it. And since they have the fee structure, and again, not knowing where it's coming from, is asking what it actually does, quantify it and qualify it, is what I've been saying, and waiting to hear back on that issue.
Well, and that's where
So-
we're going to get the information. We did put the request in back in August to
Well, they didn't have the
have.
fee in August, right?
No, they didn't have the fee, but as far as the justification for the 200%, because
Oh,
the
okay.
fee that they're actually doing, if you're a minimum user, you're actually paying more than the 200% now.
That's what Christine told me.
And it's again, where are you coming up with the service fee? You're not charging
That's
any
what I
other
asked.
contract. So I think the question back in August is still relevant as far as come up with your justification on it.
And
Show
Jim,
us the,
Rachel, you're going, not to interrupt your time, but not only the fee, and I mean, that's an arguable point, but actually getting to a contract.
correct. That's going to be
probably
long
that-
term.
Right,
And that's
the
where I like,
contract is the issue that we really got to get our hands around, because it affects other service agreements, I'm sure, in the county that we aren't even aware of yet.
right. Well, and I think that having Mr. Cortez get involved in these conversations and learning what's going on with the townships that are affected now is going to help with that contract. And thank you, Jim, for meeting with me at the coffee shop in Amherst with the residents too.
Yeah, I thought it was a very productive meeting. It was cordial. There's still some concerns out there. As I indicated to those folks, I think it's going to be a lengthy process, but usually if with enough time, patience, and effort, some solutions can be achieved. But there's still some lingering thinking that they want to carve out an agreement that's a little bit different than the one proposed by the city. And then the other thinking was that we really need to, and I'm going to recommend to this board, we really need to probably early next year when we resolve this, start thinking about a universal service agreement for all those service areas. All those areas all existed prior to us. Well, I guess for lack of another term, we're going to be cleaning up a lot of old messes that were put into place. But now that we have clearly identified pockets of problems, we need to arrive at a solution for those problems. And we need to sit down in earnest and have a global conversation with regard to all of our service areas that Lorain handles right now and establishing
Well, is
a
it just
rate.
Lorain, or is it other
Well, we have
service
agreement.
providers who maybe there's pockets laying out that we're not aware of?
Our two providers are Lorain and Elyria. We have some minor contracts with Grafton and LaGrange and so forth, but the two are Lorain and Elyria. In fact, I was meeting on that sewer, the Southeast Interceptor sewer. Council and I were at City Hall Monday? I think it was
That's the
Monday.
Elyria sewer. The Southeast Interceptor is the Elyria sewer.
For quite a conversation on that in that area. The agreements with Elyria are a little bit more mature and understandable than the older ones with Lorain. But I think any solution we resolve, we need to take even the proposed West Side Intercept sewer that never materialized because the development didn't materialize, and incorporate them into a global agreement so that everybody outside the city that at least is in our service area is paying a similar fee. And that may be an alternative to them that they find much more desirable in the city because it'll be much easier to manage that type of agreement also. But I think we need to eventually go that way. It's up to the board.
State Auditor's Office contacted me on Monday regarding our performance audit. We asked them to go back, come up with different, to review it and come back with a package. They notified me that that package will be sent out this week, so hopefully we'll all have it early next week or the following week. Parking, we agreed to make parking available on Wednesdays for the general public. Jim, do we have that on the website?
Are we doing it every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday.
I may have missed that. I thought it was a one-time, one Wednesday. I wasn't aware
Well,
what.
Tom had suggested on one side, I didn't have a problem if we had the available.
I may have missed it. You know,
Yeah.
Laura, you look a little confused.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where we went with that either, because I know we talked about in snowy weather, we lose a lot of spaces up on the top, and some even in the lower levels, and then also that we have sheriff sales on the same day as the commissioners meeting that may have problems in the wintertime when people are not on vacation and we have snow issues and things, so.
Well, the other thing is what we could look at doing is doing maybe evening meetings. I've been hearing a lot from people where we know we're not going to get people in every week by doing the evening meetings, but if there's an issue that comes up like the sewers, I'm sure we would have had a lot more people that would have came in if they knew we could attend a meeting either once or twice a month in the evening where they could come in and voice their opinion. So I don't know if you would be open to that.
Well, we've had evening meetings when we had serious issues like sales tax was a big one, and we might have had like one person that came in the evening, so.
Well, that's where you're saying that we're going to do the one evening meeting because of this special project. But if we state, hey, we're going to do it, second, fourth Wednesday of each week or each month, we may get more people that come in. I mean, it's kind of like city council. City council gets people to attend. The townships get people to attend because in the evenings it's on a consistent basis that you're having it. So I mean, it would be a long-term commitment to go through. It's kind of like like with the bus routes. You start off small group attend, and then hopefully it grows.
Well, we did the 11 o'clock one for a while because you asked and it didn't come to bring any additional people and we did that for quite a long time. I just don't know, I think we had staffing issues if we went in the evening, people that work for us. Did we have an issue with that, Mr. Cortez? Was that?
They'd show up.
Yeah,
Right,
those
Tim, you'd
don't
stay
come.
late.
I can't speak for other staff, but your staff's going to work at the
Whatever we
time
tell
this
them
board
to,
wants
yeah.
them to work.
It's just making it convenient for the
I wouldn't be opposed
employees.
to an evening meeting. I mean, one a month or something. Pick a Wednesday and do an evening meeting.
You want to?
I'm not opposed to it. I've always said I never had a problem with that. I like talking to the public.
Yeah, I mean, we know it's going to start off, it'll be slow, but again, it gives them the option, so if they do if there's a hot topic that they want to talk to us about, they can plan on coming in on that
Or,
Wednesday.
let me give a better suggestion. We could actually go, because we have scheduled a Tuesday every month, correct, to have a special meeting?
We have scheduled the second and fourth Tuesday of each
Correct.
month as a commissioners meeting already.
We
So
could
you
do one of
it-
those scheduled at 5:30 in the evening or 6
Correct.
o'clock in the evening.
Yes.
That could be done.
I would, if I may, I would suggest around 5,
Yes.
5:30. We try to lock the building at around 7. I mean, we
Security
can modify
purposes.
around that, but for security purposes, I like to make sure the building is as empty as possible. But obviously, we could figure something out, but that's the,
Well, like
most of the
overtime
bulk of
costs
the.
If we've got people staying here late and things like that, I mean.
Right,
that's
the
a-
bulk of the employees leave by 4:30. So parking becomes very adequate after 4:30. I would say not before 5, though, because we end up with quite a line leaving the
Mhm.
garage, and then one coming in would just complicate that process, too, because you can get choked up on the upper decks for about 15 minutes or so. By 5 o'clock, by I would say 4:45, it's a clean run into the garage.
If we did the last Tuesday of the month and then go through our business, depending on the next Wednesday, next day's meeting would then be a short meeting. Probably, if we get most of the business done on Tuesday, then we'd have just a short Wednesday meeting, but if there was a special issue came up, it could be addressed on that Tuesday.
Whatever the privilege of the board, the only thing you would need to let us know is when you wanted the board packages presented for consideration.
We normally have them on Mondays. I would still do them that Tuesday meeting so the public would see what we do for a business.
That's fine. You just, remember, you're starting to compress back into the weekend. We used to meet on
Right.
Thursdays, then we're meeting
Well,
on
that would give
Wednesdays,
us-
then you do on Tuesdays.
Right.
No, it's
So-
a Tuesday once a month. I mean, we could handle most of the bills and everything else are done. The other business could be done that Wednesday.
We'll actually have 2 meetings that week.
Yeah,
Two
you
meetings that
probably,
week, right.
you
But
could-
I don't want to deny what we have that comes here, and, I mean, Carlisle Township's here. I mean, we have different representatives who come and speak. Doug Rangel through his workday.
well, isn't it like the third Thursday we're going to meet at 6:30 or something like that?
Yeah, I'm
The
just.
third Thursday at 6:30.
Isn't that when I was joking, isn't that when the
okay.
trustees meet? I forget what night it is.
Well, no, that does come up though, because on Tuesdays you have other meetings. Because trustees have a lot of meetings on Tuesdays.
I don't know, is there any commissioners meetings that meet in the evening, or do they all meet in the morning?
Yes, no, there are some around the
There are
state. who
very,
do.
very few.
There's a
Very
couple.
few?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm
And usually
thinking-
they only meet for special purposes,
Right.
and those are very minimal people that
I mean, if
show.
we could go through and have
I don't think
one.
Lorain County is unique in people having issues or wanting to, and with the way people communicate these days with Facebook and emails, if they want to get their point across, they definitely get their point
Well,
across.
there's
'cause
there's no reason why you can't have your Wednesday meeting and then have a 5 o'clock in the evening Wednesday meeting.
Yeah,
Have 2 public meetings on the same
do
day,
that.
if the time is the issue. That, you could do
Matter to
your,
me.
you
Okay.
can do either way. You can do the business later in the day, or you can do the business earlier in the day. And this would keep it, our process is similar for that day, rather than having a different process 1 week out of 3 or 4 with the timing of
My
everything.
concern is I can't do a Thursday or Friday because I'm committed between Columbus and Cleveland, a lot of meetings at those dates. So that's why we moved the meeting from Thursday to Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah,
'Cause
there's
the
only one
Commissioners
township that
Association-
has a Wednesday meeting, so that would be fine. I don't believe there's any city councils that have meetings on Wednesday.
The good thing about doing it the same day, too, we have something lingering from the
Morning.
earlier meeting, like
can
we
do it that night.
occasionally have had. We could mature that by the evening and then work, have it for the evening meeting. So that would give us some additional capability.
Do we want to do the first Wednesday or the fourth Wednesday?
It would just, I think, have to be a distinction meeting if you're going to consider those two different meetings.
Oh, no,
If
it'll be,
not, it would
it'll be 2 public meetings.
Right.
Yeah, I would go with the fourth Wednesday of every month that we would have that.
And give it a 5 or 6 month, see if we get any turnout, just like we did with the buses,
Sure.
as you referred to. That's fine.
Okay.
Can I check if the fourth Wednesday has a candidates night I have to be at, though? Being it's next month before the election, I just thought about that. Can we start
No,
this
you
in
can't go.
November? No, I would go to
Two a
the,
day for the rest of the.
I just got a text,
Can we
Phil
do
said, yeah, you
November?
can't go.
can we do the last Wednesday in November or whatever it might be instead of October?
Starting in
Just we have
November?
a busy schedule
Well-
in the month of October. It's extremely
Yeah.
full.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
How about we, look at that, that could be.
It's actually a bad
Wednes-
time of year to start Wednesdays,
Yeah.
because you
Yes,
got
it
the
is at
Thanksgiving holiday,
Yeah,
and you
that's
got
what
the
I'm looking
Christmas
at.
holiday.
Yeah, so I
The
mean,
3rd
we
and
would-
4th Wednesdays are going to be somewhat busted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we went with the third Wednesday, I mean. that
That's
would
fine,
work.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
We have to do it in October. I'd rather wait till November just because of scheduling conflicts already.
That's fine.
Okay. November, the third Wednesday.
Except that'll be the day before Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Will it?
Yeah.
We don't meet, so, I mean,
The third? I thought it was the fourth.
Is it?
I don't know what
it's
weekend it falls.
21st.
I thought you
Which is
indicated the
third.
4th Wednesday of the month.
Well, I
said
thought-
the fourth,
You
he
changed it
said
to
the
the
third.
third.
Yeah, I
said
thought the
So
fourth
we're-
was actually Thanksgiving.
It's early this year, I think, Tom.
Is early?
It's the 21st.
So that's the
Wednesday.
third? Okay, so we'll go with the fourth then.
Right, that's fine. Fourth Wednesday of November, which would be
What's
November
Christmas?
28th.
Which is the 28th, and then if you go into December, we're not meeting that week.
Right.
Wrong.
Then we go into
And then we'll go
January.
January and we'll go through
So we'll only have one meeting in
this
this
year.
year.
But again, if it's something that
But we
does
do
come up.
need a Tuesday meeting. Never mind, we'll do it on a Wednesday.
Okay. All right.
And I understand it's at 5.
So we're just gonna have
Tom,
a meeting
5?
on November 28th,
I would prefer 5:30
Yeah.
for people to get off work.
Perfect.
5:30.
5:30 is fine.
5:30?
And that's all this year, basically. So November 28th at 5:30 will be a commissioners meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
For 2012.
And
That covers us for our 50 meetings then too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
St. Joe's, I know we have Doug here, so do we want to bring him up?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Doug, you
Okay.
want to come up and give us an update on St. Joe's? Sure. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just Doug Rangel, Lorain Development Corporation, working with the City of Lorain. We had our conversation a week ago Thursday with the State Director of Development and their staff. Basically, the settlement agreement that was outlined, and I've sent, I believe you guys have all gotten the emails, settlement on that would be $850,000 of the $1.35 million loan. That would be shared equally between the city and the county. They would also request that of the remaining $500,000 that there would be a non-recourse note that would be only go, they had mentioned, to the city and the county. My response to them was, that's got to stay with South Shore, not with the city or the county, because that is their obligation. The non-recourse note would only be paid back if there was a sale of the property to a third party. Otherwise, that would continue to stay out there. There was no mention of paying it out of cash flow like the current documents currently ask for. Additionally, if we're going to keep St. Joe's open, there would be the possibility, as we had discussed previously, of providing additional working capital. How much that would be is sort of unknown. If the facility were to stay open as is, we sort of have an idea, and as it would lease up, it would reduce. But we've had discussions with a couple of developers who have shown some interest but have not made any commitments. And it's kind of been interesting in that they each have their own idea of how it could be redeveloped. But all three feel that it could be a sustainable facility. Some feel it as is, it could be sustainable. Others feel it has to be in a smaller footprint. And each of them brought good arguments as to how and why it would work. So even though there isn't a settlement agreement here now, this is only for discussion to give you an update. There is no formal settlement agreement at this time. I did speak with the state last night, and the Director of Development has taken it to the governor, and we hopefully will have something within the week that we will bring down or back to the board as well as to City Council for an approval. But at this point in time, that's sort of where it stands, and if there are any questions, I will do what I can.
Let's just go through the numbers. Total amount that the county and city owe is
$5 million.
$5 million. We're going to do a buyout of $850,000, being split in half, so $425 per the county, $425 for the city.
Correct.
And they're looking, last email I saw from you was $200,000 in operational costs.
That is correct.
Okay.
Now, that is not a requirement by the state.
Right.
Okay.
That is not a requirement?
That is not a requirement. The state would like to see this open. That's sort of their reasoning for doing this, though it is not a requirement by the state. Though it is portion of getting the CORF, they would like to see the CORF being the Clean Ohio Revitalization Fund, which was granted to the city for the demolition of certain parts of St. Joe's. Yeah. So in terms of retaining the ability to have that, they would request that the facility stay open.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt that real quick?
Go ahead.
I have a question for you. On the $1.6 million, because when we negotiated almost 3 years ago, there was a $360,000 local match that Mercy was putting up. Is that match still needed, or can we redirect that match towards the shortfall, and they would still give us the $1.6 million? How are those being viewed now with the CORF money?
In terms of the 360, the CORF does require, when it was applied for and approved, it did require a $360,000 match.
Correct.
Where those funds come from, it was identified that Mercy would make that payment, of which the Mercy has made $120,000 based on the development agreement.
On it. Correct.
That's correct. And so they've made the first of the 3 payments. Had a discussion with Ed Oley. They are still committed to making those payments. Can we use those funds for the match? Yes. Do they have to be used? We would have to have that discussion with Mercy if additional funds were identified. The city was awarded a US EPA grant. I've had conversations with the US EPA as well as the State Department of Development. We could utilize our US EPA grant, but it has to be in the form of a loan. So by doing that, we could free up that 360 for other uses. But the facility then would still bear a US EPA revolving loan fund that would have to go to any future developer. So it is a possibility.
How far can that be strung out, though? 20 years, 25 years under that? If you are
the way it's
loaning it out, what's the requirements for paying it back? I spent a lot of time going through this information. That's why I didn't mean to spring this on you now. But
no,
I
and that's why
from 3 years ago, trying to figure where we got at and where we have the ability to move any money. Because if we only need a couple $100,000, let's say, to straighten up the center while it gets through this process, then possibly the shortfall in the match money for the Clean Ohio Revitalization Fund could be picked up somewhere else.
That is a possibility. That is something
I should have sent this to you by email, but I'm sorry. It was stuff I was still working on this morning.
Absolutely. It could be used for funding any shortfall. That would be something we would have to have a negotiation, because that was written within the development agreement between the parties. That would have to be modified. The parties would have to discuss that, and that would have to, I would imagine, have to go through various approvals.
Right, DOD,
That is
yeah.
something that is feasible. We could use the US EPA money. That is not a problem. So that would be something we can take a look at. That allows us to provide some working capital through that match that we had previously identified as a match for the Corps.
Now, you talked about before, the reason we wanted to get off these guarantees is so a company could come in and buy a developer. If we did any additional lending, is that going to be an issue for the developers?
Some of the developers, for the most part, would probably bring their own financing.
Bring their own financing?
They would
Okay.
likely bring their own financing.
What do you think the facility would sell for as far as a range? $500,000 to $1 million, $1 to $50 or $2? What?
That's hard to say. Each developer is going to be different. They may have a targeted use for it. If they've got if they know of a 50,000 square foot user, they may want to keep the facility because they can put somebody in there, as opposed to someone who doesn't have someone ready to go into that facility. They're going to be willing to pay a lot less.
Right.
It's difficult to say what is it worth because it is really a single-use facility. Was great for a hospital. Redeveloping it, as we all can see, has been a challenge over the years. So it depends on what the end use is going to be by each individual developer.
I know when we spoke with the state, the one proposal was to demolish the main part of the hospital and move the VA clinic into the newer part. If that's achieved, or if that's done, that's the plan, is that contract still void, or still good, or is it going to be void because you're now moving them to a different location?
Which contract?
The VA.
You're talking about the lease agreement.
The lease
agreement
with the VA?
And if you're going to move them, is that lease agreement still good?
The VA has come out and said they are going to stay where they're at. They will meet the terms of their lease where they're at now.
Right.
Now, if this facility closes, they have an option to take it over by themselves, but
Right.
I can't see why they would want to take over that main facility because the cost would be too high. More likely, and this is only my opinion, is they shut that CBOC down, and at this point in time, there's no other readily available space for them to move in. It would probably take them 3 to 6 months potentially to remove it, to move somewhere else. As a temporary facility, any long-term facility would have to go through a bid process for the VA,
Right.
and that could take a significant period of time, upwards of 2 years.
And they would still need an appropriation to do that, would be the issue.
That is correct.
currently. And the way things are in Congress, getting that appropriation would be quite difficult.
Who's going to handle the build-out?
That's what I'm saying, and I don't know what the GSA's position is.
Who would do the build-out? I mean, a move from where they are to where health and dentistry is,
Mhm.
Or
which is
another
a nice area. That building is one of the newer areas, so I understand what they're looking at. But they may as well move across the county. The build-out's still got to be done
Right.
over in that new area. Where's the build-out funds going to come from? I doubt that the VA is going to build out a second time in the same location they got a lease for. That's already
Well,
built
that was
out.
my concern, because in the talks, it was about demolishing that main portion, so you would have to move them into the new.
Well, clearly, the equipment can be moved, and
Right.
we don't have to be silly about. They have
Right.
plenty of equipment that can be moved, but that was a substantial build out on the structure. The equipment was in a separate line item budget, but there was still. I thought there was about $1.5 million, $2 million on the build out.
More
There
than that.
probably would be that. You mentioned the Lorain County Health and Dentistry space. That, at this point in time, would probably be about as close of a matching facility because it's currently used for medical, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the GSA was a real bear to wrestle with, and you've you've done things with them over the years, so have I. That space was built out to GSA specifications. The health and dentistry space is not built out to GSA specifications, and you know them. They're going to require that space to be, at the very least, even if we can convince them to take it in the current configuration, they're going to want it brought up to GSA specifications.
Absolutely, and that's where we would have to rely on a party that has done the build-out. We've been in contact with someone who has done that, and it would not be cheap. there would be the possibility, the city would have the ability to potentially do funds to do the build-out if the situation is right for it. The lease itself brings in a significant amount of income, and by reducing the footprint of this building, you're taking away having to pay for a lot of operating costs on 300,000 square feet, of which only 1/4 of it's currently being used. So by reducing the footprint, you're likely going to be reducing a lot of the operating expenses, and it could cash flow.
Are they in a, so they're in a positive cash flow off their lease space now with the VA?
I'm sorry?
They're in a positive cash flow now off the VA space at St. Joe's?
No, the overall St. Joe's?
No, just the VA section of the St. Joe's.
That lease with some of the other leases that are there based on a projected operating expense, and you're talking about projected operating expenses at about $6 to $7 a square foot overall, which is a little high, but because of the level of services the VA requires, that lease pays probably closer to $18 a square foot. So
But they required all the security, the cameras, all that. So is all those costs being rolled back into an ROI on their lease?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you get all the security and everything else for $6 something a square foot?
It's going to be tight.
Okay.
We've asked. I thought it would be a little bit less, but it would likely be closer to the $7 a square foot.
Now, which tenants are you planning on staying if that plan comes about?
We would, if that comes about, we'd look at moving Valor House in. We would end up, Health and Dentistry will be moving out next spring. Their space is currently being built out on Broadway, so they will likely vacate the space next spring. The VA, the college will still be there. We have had discussions with them. Their footprint may not be as big. We would also maintain the daycare center as well as the adult daycare center.
The gel pack building that is being built out for health and dentistry right now, they're not going to try to court the VA into that extra space in that building?
My understanding is they're taking 80% of the space. There's not enough space. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not.
I'm just
courting
wondering.
them.
I was just wondering because I know that they got a lot more space than what they initially needed.
My understanding was that they only have the top floor available, and I believe those floors only have about 8,000 to 10,000 square feet. Unless County Health and Dentistry is going to consolidate and give them more space, that could be a possibility.
You hear things out there, Doug,
Sure.
and
Oh, absolutely.
that was one
All
of
the
those.
time.
Yeah, that was one of those. They got an X amount of extra footage in the building, and that'd be a nice place for all of them to be consolidated. But I don't think there's been any talks. That was just rumor on the street.
Sure.
But as far as what the city's looking for, I know you guys are running with this project. You're looking for at least $425,000 to get the guarantee off the county, and then you'll put your $425,000 in.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. The entire time the primary goal has always been to get out from underneath, have the city and county get out from underneath its obligation on this facility. I don't want to quite call it a secondary, but to try and keep the facility running. Because those are services that a number of tenants, not only in the city but in the county as well, utilize a lot of services at that facility. And there is not one good space for them to be in.
Where's the $200,000 for operations coming from?
From the city?
From the city?
Well, the city would look at providing some funds. Exactly what account would they be coming from?
No, I didn't know if you're trying to get us to partner on the operations on top of the $425,000 for the no.
We would ask that the county participate, again, equally as a partner on that. And I know that is an ask to keep that facility operational. No matter what developer you get in there, whether if you retain South Shore as an entity or whether you have a private developer, you have County Health and Dentistry, which is in there through next spring. And there are going to be continuing operating expenses. And as the facility operates, there's still going to be a shortfall there.
Is Health and Dentistry paying any rent right now?
They are paying a very reduced rent. That goes back years to when
Goes back to when
hospital.
when Mercy was giving them in-kind free space basically for a number of years. I just didn't know if Mercy was still carrying that freight or they had got them on a rent-paying basis.
You have to remember where health and dentistry is now, all of that north wing up until this year was owned by Mercy. So they were carrying the cost of that facility. With that transfer, that is how the match for the demolition was obtained, was that the South Shore would get the money to match the Corf, and as such, the facility, the rest of that northern facility, would go to South Shore.
Were they using the equity value of the transfer to do the match, or was it cash?
I'm sorry.
Well, it had a value. I mean, it was worth X, the building.
No,
Is that what?
she's actually writing us a check.
Yeah.
Oh, they're actually writing the 100
years. That was a
okay.
negotiation, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they are writing a series of checks here.
But so health and dentistry probably really isn't paying any rent right now.
It's very much a reduced rent. It's below operating cost.
Okay.
Now, Mercy,
Yeah, I
as part of
remember
this,
that.
as part of the entire deal, Mercy did.
I understand.
Actually wrote a check to bring what their lease was in line with what the operating expenses were.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to drag them down.
Yeah.
If I remember, it's like $3 a square foot they're paying, and your operation costs like $5.
That's right. And
So-
Mercy did write a check for that that
Difference.
difference to make it, in essence, a break-even situation for South Shore.
The $200,000 operational cost that you're looking from the county, I'll ask the board to give the other board members to give their thoughts on it. I prefer not to give the $200,000. We have a lot of costs here in the county that we need to pay for. Deputies need new cars. Domestic relations need vehicles. The judges are asking for more money. Prosecutors asking for more money. Coroner, pretty much every elected official in the county is asking for more dollars to provide the service that they do. I would prefer not to see that in your proposal. If it was in the proposal, I would be probably inclined to deny it. So I'll leave it up to you. What's your thoughts on
Well, I wasn't sure when I read the email where that 200,000 was coming from. That's why I asked. And the other issue that I had, that I did put in email format to you, was the issue with the veterans. And I do have a concern about demoing that part of the building that the veterans are housed in right now, because I'm afraid that they won't be able to do another build out in another portion of the facility. So I would hope that whatever you come up with, because that was the first I heard of any additional demo other than what you were going to do with the Corf grant on that phone call. So I have a lot of concerns about that, and I think we need to have the VA, in the mix, talking about this to see where, what they're willing to do or not to do. So hopefully the developer that you pick is one that wants to keep the facility, at least the veterans portion, the way it is. The other question I have is it possible for the Valor home to go into the newer section right now, so we don't have to worry about what does happen with the rest of the building, so they don't lose their grant money for the Valor home?
Yeah, we've had discussions with Valor Home, those individuals, as well as where they would locate. The Valor Home people seem to be extremely excited about the possibility of where we would put them, where the South Shore would put them, because it would be first floor space. They were going up on the 5th floor. While it was a good place for them, they would prefer to be on the first floor because they could have a direct entrance for the people they service. So we have had discussions with them. They are amenable to that. There is a tenant currently in the space that we would look at. A discussion with that tenant has occurred, and that possibility does exist. So it would work out regardless of what happens. The reason why you have first heard about some of these changes is when we did the original proposal, it was based on a certain set of assumptions in keeping the whole building going, but that would require the settlement amount to be at a smaller amount so we could provide the working capital until lease-up could happen. With the way the facility is, you either have to lease it up or you got to reduce the footprint. Based on their rejection of the original proposal, the lease-up time, we would actually have to put up more money for that to happen, because a lease-up is not going to happen overnight. So we looked at it again and said, if we can reduce the footprint, consolidate the tenants into a smaller section, then you give it a better chance to survive. The sustainability is probably a lot better because you go from a 25% occupancy to 90 to 100% occupancy in a smaller footprint. And again, you're reducing a lot of the operating costs. So it was based on the comments we got back from the state. We had to take a look at the project again and come up with a revised plan that would provide for the long-term viability.
Okay. And then to answer Mr. Williams' question, the $100,000 that we would be putting up, you would be putting in 100, we would be putting in 100 for operations, or 200 and 200? What were you?
At this point in time, we're the first thing we need to accomplish, and again, this was something that every single developer we talked to was, you got to get the state out of there. So that's the first thing we need to accomplish.
Well, I think they're going to do that as long as we come up with $425,000 apiece, correct?
That is correct.
And then they're out.
It sounds like it, yes. It sounds like that's what's going to happen.
And they don't care really about anything else other than getting that money back.
That is correct.
Right. So
their primary goal is to maximize their return.
They were happy with the thing closing the last time we talked to them. So I don't think they really care.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, they
not
wanted.
Last time, the time before that, when we talked to them on the phone, they were pretty much, if you don't come up with this, then we'll just, I'm glad. Sorry, I'll just have to close.
Well, that's always a negotiation point. You start one place and you work to a compromise in the middle to do the best you possibly can.
Yeah. Well, whether it's 100 or 200, you don't really have to answer that question. My thoughts are, we're going to do what our ancestors, I have to say, because this was something that we all inherited, agreed to. So we have to, honor that. So I would definitely, we have to put that 425 in to satisfy that debt. But as far as going forward, the county has nothing to gain, and the only thing I gain is having the veterans in an established, in a facility that they care about, they want to be in. Other than that, we don't get anything. The city will receive income taxes from all those entities that are staying there, all the money for demolitions and rebuild outs and things like that you have once you start rebuilding there, you'll get income tax from that. So you do have money that will eventually come back to the city. We really don't have anything except money going out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
My turn?
Yep.
If you can look into it, Doug, I want to keep the facility operating. It services a lot of residents, not just Lorain residents, but residents from the entire county. See if there's some movement with that match dollars that could help with some of the shortfall, because I know you changed the demolition schedule and target, and see if some of that can be used to cover some of that shortfall. And if it's got to be an EPA loan, then maybe the new developer could take that on, because if it's a couple $100,000 that would have to be loaned on a swap out of dollars. A 20 or 25-year note plan is not that expensive on a couple of $100,000 if they think they can achieve success with it. And I'm sure you're looking at developers who know what they're doing at this point. It's not just a bunch of local guys serving on a board trying to make something work. So I think it's gone to another level when you're talking about a developer at this point.
Yeah, well, you're working with the types of federal programs that you're talking here, and those federal tenants, it's very much of a specialty. It's not something that any developer can deal with, because those regulations are very, very strict, and you need someone who understands what those are and what's going to be required. So yes, absolutely. And to answer both of your questions in terms of the working capital, did a quick estimate of what I think might be needed for the next 12 to 18 months. That was a number that I had looked at in terms of based on where it stands today and a projected time frame in terms of some of the tenants moving out and relocating them. Certainly that number is going to change. And in terms of looking at the 360, that way I think the city's not looking to put out more money than it has to either in terms of trying to take the shortfall and get rid of that. So certainly that is something we will look at and make sure if we can try and keep us funding a shortfall to zero. That's the idea.
I wish I had called you earlier on it. Again, I just finished up with that stuff this morning because I've been running around and working on this lawsuit with Freddie Mae.
A lot of things are being discussed because of the number of parties and the number of issues. We've had to work on the fly on this quite a bit. So, any other recommendations I would be more than happy to listen to.
I actually want to sit down. I told you before I had a developer contact me. What they were throwing out to me was basically if the city, we could use that grant money to demolish the entire building, they would be willing to come in and build a new facility on there, which would then generate the property tax for the city as well. That would require a temporary location for the VA, though, which this developer would have. The trick would be, what I tell them, it's getting the VA to sign another lease to go back to the City of Lorain. But I don't know if you've had talks with, if this developer has contacted you.
We may be talking, the developer you're talking about, we may have had the discussions, separate discussions with the same developer.
Okay.
Afterwards, we can discuss that.
All right.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Was that the end of your report, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the longest report in history.
Yeah.
Board correspondence?
I move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Public comment?
Anybody wishing to address the board? Seeing none, I move we go into executive session as outlined by the administrator and assistant county prosecutor.
Second.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.